Welcome to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast, your weekly news roundup of hunting, fishing, trapping, and conservation stories from around the Gem State. Hosted by Fish and Game's Public Information Specialist, Connor J. Lease.
And welcome back to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast. Boy, we got a full episode for you this week, and just in time for the 4th of July, so let's get to it. This week we got mountain lake fishing, Idaho's state park fishing equipment loaner program, and some grizzly bear news in the Island Park area. But first, in the spirit of freedom and fireworks and all that crap, I got a story for you. Nowadays, when you search Idaho Fish and Game's online fishing planner, you quickly find that Idaho's founding fathers weren't just patriots, but anglers. All across the state are patriotic tips of Uncle Sam's bucket hat to the red, white, and blue lakes, where anglers can celebrate their freedoms from the bank, the boat, or the dock. Without further ado, here's a few spots to get you started. Ah yes, 4th of July, July 4th, Independence Day, fireworks, and Freedom Day. No matter what you call it, the fourth day in the month of July marks the peak of summer when grills are sizzling, cul-de-sacs are buzzing, and parents everywhere are already feeling the extraordinary force of back-to-school week stronger than ever. But if you thought that's all the 4th of July represents, you'd be sadly mistaken. It's easy to get wrapped up in all the pomp and circumstance of such patriotic traditions as hot dog chugging and emergency room visits, and forget the true meaning of the national holiday, a day of unshackling ourselves from responsibility and thus feeling free to go fishing. The 4th of July falls on a Friday this year, which only pours more gasoline on the angler's burning desire to get out and fish. No need to come up with a clever excuse to get out of work when most of the country and your boss are already out fishing too. In fact, a seasoned angler would just forgo an excuse altogether at risk of tipping off their boss and losing that crucial head start leaving town. Idaho is one of the younger children born into the USA, joining the Union just a day shy of Independence Day in the year of 1890. Early Idahoans celebrated their newly minted state and independent nation they just became a part of in perhaps the most honorable way imaginable. Now, quick disclaimer, we chose these spots based on their names, not necessarily their accessibility or quality of their fishing. So buyer beware, but we assure you that there are fish in all of them. Starting off with American Falls Reservoir. It's hard to classify a 55,000-acre reservoir as a fishing hole, but American Falls Reservoir is a must-fish destination for the American angler. Located just west of Pocatello in the southeast region, this reservoir is home to record-breaking trout, as well as smallmouth bass and perch. It's the largest of Idaho's Snake River reservoirs, but unlike others that tend to favor warm water fish, American Falls also supports a trophy trout fishery that includes rainbows, browns, and cutthroat trout. Its shoreline has a variety of bays, inlets, and coves that provide a fishing experience similar to smaller waters, which anglers in a small craft can enjoy. An accurate depiction of this can be seen in Emanuel Lutz's iconic 1851 oil painting, Washington Crossing the Snake River. The reservoir is often drawn down very low by August, so fishing is best in spring to midsummer before the water gets too low. The town of American Falls is at the southwest end of the reservoir where there are several boat launches and fuel services available. There's also services and a boat launch available near Aberdeen, midway up the reservoir on the west side. Meanwhile, across the mighty Salmon River at the base of Marshall Mountain, you'll find Union Lake. As with hundreds of landmarks found across Idaho, Union Lake no doubt got its name in the years following the Civil War, when thousands flocked to the Idaho Territory in the late 1860s. Northerners and Southerners alike often wound up in the same towns, leading to tense altercations that could only be settled by fishing. Union Lake still stands today as a 19th century memorial where ex-Confederates were outfished by the Yankees. Now, don't be discouraged by its size. Union Lake is an alpine lake at around 6,700 feet, the headwaters of Union Creek, which meanders its way eventually linking up with the Salmon River. Like most alpine lakes in Idaho, you'll want to be just as diligent packing extra legs as you do packing extra flies and tapered leaders. Now, you can leave your trekking poles and your GPS sat phones at home for this next one. Eagle Island State Park is as all-American as it gets. It's not hard to find. It's got sandy beaches and boggy swamps, and you'll have to take out your wallet to pay the Idaho State Park's entrance fee. But don't let a modest park fee dissuade you from checking out this easily accessible fishing spot this July. This 545-acre day-use park west of Boise also features a popular swimming beach, a grassy picnic area, a water slide, and more than 5 miles of trails for those looking for a place to ride horses, hike, walk your dog, or play disc golf, the official sport of America. Be sure to check out the Eagle Island State Park website for more information on park fees and hours of operation. Freedom Park Pond. Ooh, just saying it alone is enough to summon a bald eagle. A mere freckle on the back of the undulating Snake River, Freedom Park Pond is just under an acre in size, but it is a heavy hitter if you're looking to do some trout fishing. Roughly 1,000 rainbows were stocked here back in June, allowing anglers young and old a chance to pad their catch percentage. With the town of Burley just a stone's throw away, you and your family have all you need for a no-stress 4th of July weekend. That principle goes out the door, though, if you have toddlers. Perhaps the crown jewel of Idaho, fishing in the Stanley Basin is enough to make any intrepid outdoor enthusiast excited, whether you're an angler, a glamper, or a dirtbag river rat. The Stanley Basin is iconic not just for its granite saw blades from mountains, but because of the waters and fish that reside at their bases. High atop that list is 4th of July Lake. The lake is by no means the only destination fishery in the Stanley Basin. It's just the only one that has a patriotic name, okay? Although a proper Idaho mountain lake, 4th of July Lake is fairly easy to get to if you don't mind a brief hike. The trailhead by the same name is a popular jumping-off point for backpackers and sportsmen, and one of the most beautiful gateways into the White Cloud Mountains Idaho has to offer. Visitors will find no shortage of activities, alpine lakes, and other visitors. If you're looking for a true alpine lake experience, you might want to consider Washington Lake, this one found at a pleasant 9,400-foot elevation band. Washington Lake number 2, as it's labeled in our fish planner, is home to rainbow and cutthroat trout. Accessing Washington Lake number 2 is also darn patriotic. Heading southeast from the popular 4th of July trailhead off Highway 75, an angler can expect a 3-mile hike along a well-maintained trail. Washington Lake number 2 and its cabinet of other alpine lakes amid the scenic White Cloud Mountains are just a handful of hundreds of lakes bubbling with trout. If you do manage to make it up to the 17.8-acre lake, you can expect to find and catch some very hungry trout who have propagated this lake since it was first stocked by Washington himself in 1776. Nestled in a remote stretch of the Albion Range south of Burley, an all-American angler finds themselves in a chapel of patriotic reverence. Like so many of the fishing spots mentioned in this story, one has to wonder, what fly-casting, worm-dunking, red-blooded American first stumbled their way up a 9,000-foot mountain in their muck boots before greeting some unmarked, unfished lake? No sooner did that freedom-loving fisher unpack the cooler they, too, carried up the 9,000-foot mountain, attached a hook to their line, and commenced the timeless sport of baiting and waiting. As they did, they listened to the shimmering needles of Douglas firs and the fluttering spades of aspen leaves. They heard the sporadic glurp of rising trout out on the water, none of the which the least bit tempted by a bare treble hook that got its bait picked as soon as it hit the water. The angler occasionally glances at the rod tip, just hoping it bows to the unnamed lake, but nothing except the clouds drifting by and the frenzied swatting hands at mountain mosquitoes occupies this basin. Just then, the angler's pole dips once, twice, then dances wildly. The angler jumps up and does the same. After reeling in the 12-inch cutthroat trout and knocking over their beer in the process, the angler hoists the trout up, framed by a backdrop of clouds and tangled monofilament line and bobbers, a fisherman's wind chime. His heart raced just as it had during the climb up the 9,000-foot mountain. He smiles. Free from all the day-to-day responsibilities, the ticking of the work clock, the shrieks of feral toddlers and the scowls of disinterested teens, free from the overgrown lawn and the leaking O-ring under the bathroom sink, free from all the one-act plays of dramatic friends and acquaintances, free from all that. The angler yanks the pull tab off another can. I think I'll call this Independence Lake, they say. And that, as far as I know, is how the lake got its name. Now, if you're interested in checking out these stories and more of Idaho's fishing destinations, you know what to do, folks. Hit the link below to read this article and check out our fishing planner to help point you in the right direction. There's no greater sinking feeling than pulling up to the campsite and realizing you forgot the fishing poles. That's why Idaho Fish and Game has teamed up with the Idaho Department of Parks and Recreation to provide loaner rods at several of our state parks. The State Park Fishing Equipment Loaner Program aims to increase awareness of the many fishing opportunities within Idaho's state parks. With fishing locations at or near most parks, Parks and Recreation and Fish and Game wanted to eliminate some of the barriers that might coincide with those interested in fishing, such as lack of equipment. Each of the participating parks has 16 rods available to check out for free, along with fully stocked tackle boxes ready for park visitors to enjoy. If you're interested in the State Park Fishing Equipment Loaner Program, please check out our fishing webpage or go to Idaho State Parks and Recreation's website or stop by one of the following Idaho state parks. We got Bruno Dunes, Castle Rocks, Dworshak, Eagle Island, Farragut, Harriman, Hell's Gate, Henry's Lake, Hayburn, Lake Walcott, Massacre Rocks, Priest Lake, Round Lake, Thousand Springs, and Winchester Lake. Here's Riley Calhoun, Fish and Game's Aquatic Education Specialist.
Our partnership with Idaho Parks and Recreation is an incredible opportunity to help park visitors take advantage of the abundant fishing opportunities available in our state parks and surrounding areas. We hope it gives kids, families, and adults the chance to drop a line, reel in some fun, and connect with nature in a way they might not typically experience.
Participants over the age of 14 will need a fishing license while using the loaner rods. Licenses can be purchased online, by phone, at an Idaho Fish and Game office, or at various convenience stores and outdoor retailers across the state. I believe it's $13.50 for a daily license or $30.50 for an annual license. If you got a state park already picked out but want to know more about the fishing opportunities it has, well then check out our fishing planner, an easy-to-use online tool featuring stocking reports, species information, facilities, maps, and rules. Hit the link if you want to learn more. Now, if you're an adventurous angler or just willing to go beyond the beaten path to Idaho's most famous fishing destinations, Roger Phillips has got a story for you just in time for the 3-day holiday weekend. Idaho has thousands of lakes, probably more than you could ever explore in a lifetime of summers. And Idaho Fish and Game has kept these lakes stocked for decades by a variety of methods, including aircraft, horseback, and backpack. And information on lake stocking isn't a secret. And guess where you can find it? In our fish planner. Again, bringing this one up. Fish and Game releases hundreds of thousands of fingerling trout so they can grow to catchable sizes. Some lakes also have unique species such as golden trout and grayling. First step is choosing your own adventure. One misconception is that you have to climb a mountain to reach a mountain lake. It's true that some are found in distant, hidden basins guarded by steep, rocky ridges where only a few hardy souls are willing to hike, but most don't require that kind of commitment. Many are readily accessible by hiking just a mile or two on well-marked and maintained trails. You can also drive to some, and others are accessible by four-wheel drive roads or trails that allow you to ride a UTV, an ATV, or a dirt bike. Be sure to check with land management agencies such as the Forest Service or Bureau of Land Management to see what types of trails access certain lakes. The next step is selecting a lake. If you're looking at a map or a satellite image, how do you know which lake to choose if they all look similar? Something to remember is all mountain lakes are not created equal. Typically, a lake in a valley or meadow with a stream running in or out of it and mixed depths can often be productive for fishing. Conversely, a deep lake in a rocky basin fed strictly by snowmelt can mean limited nutrients and slow fish growth. A good strategy is to find an area with a cluster of lakes, so if one lake isn't producing good fishing, another one is nearby. And don't assume that hiking farther will improve your odds of catching fish. Most mountain lakes don't get intense fishing pressure, so a close lake may have outstanding fishing for a lot less effort than a distant one. If you're planning your trip based on fish stocking reports, remember that most trout stocked in mountain lakes are fingerlings, and it can take 3 to 4 years for them to grow to catchable sizes. However, catchable sized trout are sometimes stocked in lakes that are road accessible and some lakes have naturally reproducing populations as well as stocked fish. Some mountain lakes may also have brook trout, which can provide lots of fishing action, and they can be a lot of fun to catch for young or new anglers. There's typically a 25 fish bag limit for brook trout because they're so plentiful and prolific, but make sure you check the fishing seasons and rules booklet for exceptions. While lots of brook trout and a generous bag limit may be enticing, they can also overpopulate mountain lakes, which means lots of fish, but nearly all of them are going to be small. All right, now here's some hot tips for mountain lake fishing. Mountain lakes typically don't get a lot of fishing pressure and have a short growing season, so most standard trout bait, lures, and flies will usually work. Bring a small assortment of spoons and spinners, maybe a few different types of baits or grasshoppers if you can catch them. For fly anglers, woolly buggers, small nymphs, and attractor flies are usually sufficient. Now remember that fish are not evenly distributed in a lake. Look for them in obvious places, including near inlets and outlets, or where there's structures, such as down logs, lily pads, boulders, and bluffs, etc. Another good idea is to bring polarized sunglasses and find a high vantage point. Water in mountain lakes is usually pretty clear, so you can often see trout cruising beneath the surface if you watch for them carefully. Also, be sure to look for rings from rising fish, which show they're feeding on insects. If possible, bring a float tube or small raft, which will allow you to access more water and also catch trout offshore. Like any waters, trout will go on and off the bite, so don't give up immediately if you don't catch something. However, if after a reasonable length of time you don't get any bites or see any signs of fish, maybe try moving to a different lake if that's possible. Last thing I'm going to say here is savor the experience. What makes mountain lakes special places is the opportunity to experience spectacular scenery, wildlife, and solitude. The reason for traveling to a mountain lake is to catch fish, but don't get fixated on just that aspect of it. Mountain lakes are found in some of Idaho's most spectacular places, so enjoy the journey. After all, you could also catch a trout within a short drive of your home, possibly in a pond in the town or city that you live in, but it wouldn't be the same experience you can have at a mountain lake. That's all we got on that one. Hit the link in the notes to read Roger Phillips' full story. All right, time to move on to wildlife news, where up in McCall, reports of aggressive deer are starting to roll in, and here's why. Every year, in mid-June or early July, Fish and Game staff in the McCall office start to receive reports of aggressive deer. Right on time, Fish and Game received their first report up Warren Wagon Road just last week. Now, staff are reminding area residents to give deer space and keep dogs on leashes to avoid potential conflicts. Quote, there are a couple of areas where we know of does that tend to become pushy or threatening when they have fawns hidden nearby. For the last few years, there's been one up Warren Wagon Road and another near the woodlands, end quote, said Nathan Borg, regional wildlife biologist. Although it can seem like strange behavior, it's pretty normal for does to become aggressive, especially in a place where deer have fawns right in town. All wildlife have a choice between fight or flight when they feel threatened, and even typically docile animals like deer will sometimes choose fight. According to Borg, deer can be particularly aggressive when they encounter domestic dogs, which they see as predators. Fish and Game has few options to resolve these situations, since young fawns are usually hidden somewhere away from mom, and removing the doe from the area would result in orphaning the fawn, which would then likely die from predation or starvation. Luckily, this behavior only lasts a few weeks. By the end of July, deer shift more towards flight because young fawns are more mobile and able to keep up. Until then, keep dogs close and on a leash. If you observe a deer, stay well away from it. If it behaves aggressively, back away and yell until you are a safe distance away. Hit the link below to read Brian Pearson's press release coming out of the McCall subregion. All right, last story of the week, boys and girls. Time to talk about grizzly bears. On June 26, Idaho Fish and Game, in cooperation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, euthanized an adult male grizzly after it had become food conditioned from consistently receiving food rewards in an Island Park neighborhood. The bear began frequenting the Pine Haven area early last week, where it received multiple food rewards from unsecured garbage cans and broke into vehicles used to store garbage. The large bear was consistently seen on doorbell cameras, and tracks were seen throughout the neighborhood, accessing garbage and pushing against buildings. Due to the bear's consistent seeking of unnatural food and habituation to residential areas, it was captured and euthanized in the interest of human safety. Because Island Park is home to both grizzly and black bears, residents and visitors who fail to properly store attractants are putting their neighbors and bears at risk. All residential garbage containers should be stored inside a garage or locked shed to prevent these types of situations from occurring. Garbage containers should only be put out the morning of pickup, not the night before, and never, ever left out in the open. Use of certified bear-resistant containers is also highly recommended. Storage of garbage in trucks or other vehicles is not a suitable storage solution and has been an ongoing problem. Bears are extremely adaptable and can quickly learn to associate people with food. The presence of unsecured food sources of human origin, such as residential garbage, birdseed, dog food, beehives, domestic poultry, or fruit trees, have long been documented as sources of human-bear conflicts. Food-conditioned bears can rapidly lose their fear of humans, resulting in bears approaching people and ultimately putting the lives of both the humans and the bears at risk. Grizzly bears in Idaho are federally protected under the Endangered Species Act, and management actions are therefore done in consultation with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. That's it for major stories this week. Let's hit the rapid-fire bulletin. Effective at the end of fishing hours on July 2nd, harvest is closed for adult Chinook salmon on the South Fork Salmon River. The fishery will remain open from July 3rd through the 6th for jack-only harvest. All Chinook salmon fishing on the South Fork Salmon River will close at the end of fishing hours on July 6th. Check out the Chinook Salmon Seasons and Rules webpage to check the status of all Idaho Chinook salmon fisheries. Seasons can change quickly, folks, so be sure to check the most current reports and restrictions before you head out. All capped elk zones other than the Sawtooth Elk Zone will go on sale on July 9th at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. Tags are first come, first served, and available at gooutdoorsidaho.com, at all Fish and Game licensed vendors, Fish and Game regional offices, on Fish and Game's mobile app, or by calling 1-800-554-8685. Half of the Sawtooth Elk Zone tags go on sale at Fish and Game offices and licensed vendor locations on July 11th at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. The other half of the Sawtooth Elk Zone tags go on sale online and over the phone at 1-800-554-8685 at 1 o'clock Mountain Time, and will follow the same process and rules listed on the press release. Hit the link to learn more. Idaho Fish and Game's hugely successful project, dubbed Turkey Tracker, launched last summer, and by the time the year was out, had racked up over 1,400 turkey sightings across Idaho. Now, as we head into July and August, tracking turkeys is more important than ever. And that's where you come in. Turkey Tracker relies solely on folks like you reporting their turkey sightings. Because we are interested in tracking nesting success and reproduction, observations of broods during July and August are especially important. So, next time you're out and about and see some wild turkeys, pull out your smartphone and document your sightings. Think of it as like Pokemon Go meets birding. Right now, it is as important as ever to download the free Survey 123 app and get to spotting turkeys. Head on over to Idaho Fish and Game's Wild Turkey webpage to learn more. Many of Idaho's lakes and ponds are soon going to be bolstered with Idaho Fish and Game stocking over 150,000 catchable-sized rainbow trout this July. If you're wondering where the stocking trucks are going to be backing up to your favorite fishing hole, well, we've asked our Fish and Game hatchery staff to boil down some of the most notable stocking highlights coming to your local fishery this month. Hit the link in the description to see just where we'll be backing the stocking trucks up. Okay, that's it for this week's stories. It's time for our question of the week. This week's question comes to us from Brandon S. Brandon asks, if I transport an elk for a friend, do I need a proxy statement? The answer is yes. Any person who transports any wildlife or fish for another person, or receives any wildlife or fish for cleaning, processing, as a gift, or for storage must have a written proxy statement signed by the person who killed the animal, specifying the numbers and species of wildlife, date taken, hunter's name and address, license, tag, and permit numbers. The The tag should remain attached to the carcass. A proxy form is available on page 101 of the Big Game Seasons and Rules booklet, all other seasons and rules brochures, or on the Fish and Game website. Hope this helps. That's all the news we have for this week, folks. Have a wonderful 4th of July. Get out there and do some fishing. Thanks for putting an ear to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin. If there's something on your mind, or if you got a question related to Fish and Game matters, feel free to drop us a line at podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. Again, that's podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. Just a reminder, folks, we got our very first episode of Shooting the Bull premiering on July 9th. So be sure to check that out on your favorite streaming site. Ben Beery and myself will be sitting down with 2 of our Fish and Game commissioners. It's a really cool chat. You'll learn a whole bunch of information about what it takes to be a commissioner and what they do. So make sure you follow Shooting the Bull, follow us on social media, and check it out on your favorite streaming site. Thanks for listening, folks. Happy 4th of July. We'll catch you next week.